John Mugobi took the boxing world by storm when he made his nationally televised debut in the early 1980s, as he not only knocked out tough opposition, he did it with a savagery that made him must-see TV for every fight fan. One boxing writer described him as an economy-sized George Foreman. He quickly became a weekend staple at NBC, and his nickname summed up his reputation to fans and foes alike. John Mugobi was born in Kampala, Uganda. His father was a maintenance worker supporting 7 children, and young Mugobi seemed doomed for poverty if he did not do something extraordinary. Inspired by Muhammad Ali, Mugobi became a bully at school, fighting both his fellow students and teachers. According to his friend, John Munduga, Mugobi would knock his fellow students unconscious. Mugobi would be expelled from numerous schools until his father took him to a boxing gym near his house called the Kiswa Zone East. The gym provided him with the outlet that the school did not. Mugobi began winning tournaments as early as age 9. By the time he was a teenager, he was traveling internationally to compete in tournaments. His success caught the attention of the Ugandan president, the tyrannical Idi Amin, who himself had been the country's amateur heavyweight champion. Mugobi would come home with trophies, and Amin would throw him and his teammates a big party. On one occasion, he handed Mugobi an envelope with $400 inside. He said, good boy, keep doing that." In 1979, Mugobi won a gold medal at the East African Championships, but his father, to whom he was very close, died in a car accident shortly thereafter. John now had to help support his 6 other siblings, and a professional career was now the goal after the Olympics. Entering the games with a 195-5 record, Mugobi scored 3 consecutive knockouts and 1 decision before entering into the gold medal round against the top-rated Andres Aldama of Cuba. Aldama had lost to Sugar Ray Leonard at the 1976 Olympics, but Mugobi held his own against his more experienced opponent. But his performance turned heads, particularly that of British promoter Mickey Duff, who immediately wanted to sign the raw talent from Uganda, stating that he just saw an animal. Duff would move Mugobi to London, and his new project would train under the watchful eye of George Francis. But Mugobi didn't take kindly to his new surroundings. He hated the cold climate and missed his mother. He would call his friends back home in tears with tales of his homesickness and inability to assimilate, as initially he only spoke Swahili, the native tongue of his Mutoro tribe, and he struggled with learning English. But Mugobi took out his life frustrations on his opponents, and with his success, he began to make new friends and also acquire a new nickname, Beast. The nickname originated when Los Angeles trainer Jackie McCoy said to Mickey Duff, "That fighter of yours, he's a real beast." Ring announcer Bill Kaplan overheard the conversation and introduced Mickey Duff's fighter as John the Beast Mugobi. 2.5 years into his pro career, Mugobi was already taking on the likes of longtime contender Gary Guyton, who was a veteran of 45 fights.
Now he's in really bad trouble. Guyton is in really bad trouble. Got hit with a clean shot.
Second time this round.
Here comes the
Fourth
towel.
time this fight. And this looks to be all over. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
John Mugobi and John Mugobi with a unique celebration. And when John Mugobi, the 21-year-old out of Uganda, now living in London, England, stopped the veteran Gary Guyton in round 3, 4 knockdowns in the bout, and Mugobi is now 16-0, all 16 by knockout, and 30, most of them have been early.
Yes, and I think the boxing fraternity is very excited about Mugobi. I certainly am.
But the quick success hid a discipline problem, as Mugobi would always have tense encounters with his trainer, George Francis. Francis wanted to instill discipline into Mugobi, sometimes forcing him out of bed to run. One time he knocked on Mugobi's door and windows, trying to wake him up, which prompted the Beast to quit on his trainer numerous times. On one occasion, Mugobi showed up 10 pounds overweight for a bout against journeyman Don Morgan only a day before the fight.
Morgan is down and out. Another guy just hit his head flush on that canvas. He's in bad shape.
Boy, did Mugobi unleash a killer punch.
It is over. The doctors are in the ring.
Mr. Mugobi, Mickey had a little concern about John's preparation, his discipline coming into this fight, but he shook it all off and really blistered Don Morgan.
I was very concerned.
Hold on 1 second. We need this.
I was very concerned because he hadn't worked the way he should have done. He'd been sick, he'd had a bad cold, and then he bitched, he wanted to get out of the fight and so forth, and eventually we talked him through. But he went through half-hearted, and I was concerned because he wasn't in the shape that he should have been. And I think it's one of the reasons he went out to get him really early. But he is pound for pound. I've been involved with 14 world champions. He's pound for pound the best puncher I've ever been involved with for his weight. It's unbelievable.
Mickey, they're talking about the next fight for John Mugobi against Curtis Parker, who's really been on a roll lately. He's knocking everybody out. Looks better probably than he ever has. And a lot of people are saying that Curtis Parker is going to beat John Mugobi.
Well, that remains to be seen. Let me give you my prophecy. Curtis Parker has never, ever been off his feet in a fight. This will be the first time.
A lot of tension right here between these two fighters, and the audience is coming up to this slugfest.
Domination by Parker.
If there was ever a definition of toe-to-toe, you just saw it.
Oh, right hand by Mugobi in front. John Mugobi has Curtis Parker in trouble here in the opening round.
Bear in mind, Curtis Parker's never been down, never been knocked out, and yet he faces a man that is pummeling him.
Halfway through round one, scheduled for 10.
Parker's going to have to decide to abandon that body attack every time he goes to the body. Mugobi sounds his gong with a good right hand.
And again the right hand to stun Parker. And Mugobi looking to put him away. Curtis Parker in big trouble with just under a minute left in round one.
I can't imagine what's holding up Curtis Parker. No one has ever withstood that punch before. He has no legs. Parker has no legs left. Mugobi mistakenly walked away thinking he had been given a standing 8 count.
And there's no standing 8. That was a push. Look out. Look out. And very wisely, the referee, Max Parker Jr., able to get in. There is no standing 8 here in Tampa. And that is the first knockdown of the bout. And Parker looking to shake it off.
He can't go on. He cannot go on. He cannot go on.
Mugobi is poised. The referee is ready to continue, and that'll do it. Time running out. And John Mugobi being kept away.
His colorful name and punching power made him a network favorite. George Francis said, "When he hits, he hurts." When John hits them, you can see the expression on their face change. Announcer Ferdy Pacheco thought that success may come too soon for the still unsophisticated Mugobi. Pacheco said, "Right now, he is unspoiled, unfettered. Like the Bushman in that film, The Gods Must Be Crazy, walking somewhat bewildered through this world, getting a lot of money to do what he does naturally. He's not complex. Right now, if he wins the title, it might be another story. He eats and sleeps boxing, and the only measure of sophistication is the credit card, and that's going to be his undoing." Pacheco may as well have had a crystal ball, as Mugobi would go on shopping sprees with his friends after every victory. Duff and Francis worried of people that would parasite off their fighter, but Mugobi brushed off their concerns. He said, In our country, if you have food, you share it. If you have a roof and someone does not have a roof, you let him in. It happens to be that I'm the one with the money. Mugobi eventually settled in Tampa, Florida, where the hot weather better suited him, and the fans warmed up to him immediately. He had stopped going back to Uganda when some members of the army threatened his life, jealous of his success as he continued to rampage through the American boxing scene. Mugobi found little resistance in his opponents until he met James Hard Rock Green. Hard Rock was 5'5" and 155 pounds of solid muscle. He bobbed and weaved like a scaled-down Joe Frazier. Mugobi found Green to be a difficult target and caught a thumb in the second round.
A late hit by Mugobi as the bell sounded, and then Joe Cortez tried to separate the boxers, and that's a late hit by James Green, and right here, and he thumbed Mugobi. In fact, the ringside physician to the corner of John Mugobi to check him out. Apparently he's all right.
Mugobi clutched at his eye in pain and came back to his corner, wanting the fight to be stopped. But Duff screamed at Mugobi to open his eye, and George Francis tossed a bucket of ice water in his face. The ringside physician stepped into the corner, asking to see if Mugobi was okay to continue. And Duff, thinking fast, told the doctor that Mugobi didn't speak a word of English. The doctor bought the story, and Duff pushed Mugobi off his stool to go back into combat.
Because, you know, the Green is looking to get Mugobi in a street battle, which apparently is the strategy from the corner, and it has been successful.
He's been successful so far. He's outspeeding Mugobi. He's outscoring him. Mugobi's landing his best shots, and Green is taking him off.
Oh, a right hand by Green. That hurt Mugobi.
He's got Mugobi in trouble.
A big right hand by Green. Mugobi is holding on.
Green has got Mugobi in trouble. Mugobi doesn't know how to hold on.
Green looking to put Mugobi away.
Mugobi doesn't know how to hold on. He's so used to knocking people out, he doesn't know how to hold on. If he doesn't fight back, they're going to stop this. If he doesn't punch back, Cortez is going to stop this.
You see the time left in round 3. It's all James Green. It began with the right hand, and Mugobi has not been able to land a punch the last minute and a half.
He better throw something. There you go, he threw something. So James Green is going to punch himself out. 32 seconds to go. Mugobi fighting on instinct now. He's never been this way. He's never been in trouble. And he's got a tiger on top of him, James Green.
Final seconds, round 3. Mugobi seems now to have recovered. Had a rough time for a minute and a half. We're going to stay between rounds as this third round comes to an end. Tampa, Florida, Marv Albert and the fight doctor, Bertie Pacheco, and George Francis, the trainer of Mugobi, complaining, pointing at the head of James Green.
The head is full of the ointment from the eye. Apparently, as he went to go out, he brushed the back of the hand of the trainer, and he got it all over his hair. Of course, when he butts with that, that's even worse. George Francis is trying to get that off, but he risked disqualification of his fighter. That would have been a disaster.
And look at the left eye of Green.
Boy, Mugobi willing to play it out, even though it's the 10th round, and he's got this fight won.
Let's see, slip.
Oh, look at that eye.
No, he slipped, says Joe Cortez.
Yes, but the damage is so big to that eye, they may stop that. It is a bloody mess. It is the 10th round. He's been a great warrior, but what a mess. The cut is under the eye, apparently. It is not danger to the eye itself, but it is bleeding. Copious quantities of blood.
And Mugobi is looking to put Green away. Obviously.
The fight showed his heart, and the knockout streak continued. Duff began calling out Marvin Hagler and Thomas Hearns, but he preferred Hagler, saying he would be easier. Mugobi then served further notice by taking on divisional mainstay Frank the Animal Fletcher. The bout would be a super fight of sorts for NBC TV, as they had the Beast against the Animal.
USBA, United States Boxing Association middleweight champion, and the crowd responding to the entrance of John Mugobi. Well, the Beast getting the royal treatment as he makes his way. The Beast Mugobi, who is now living here in Tampa and has emerged as a big favorite.
There he is again in the corner.
Combination by Mugobi. His timing has been a bit off to this point, using the jab and coming on with the right, as you just saw. Halfway through, this is round 4, slated for 10.
Mugobi picking his shots now, almost as if he's not in a hurry. Could be a mistake.
Oh, big right hand of that left Fletcher. And John Cortez has pulled it. It's all over. Right now he's counting it. Apparently.
That can't go on. Cortez will not let that go on.
All over.
Congratulations. First, did that left hook that he kept hitting you with hurt?
No. That gives me a protection, to fight now.
Do you think that the ropes being so loose, he was foolish to go to the ropes when you attacked him on the ropes?
No, I was dangerous, that's why I went on the rope. So I said I must finish him on the rope because I didn't want him to come, to me again.
You didn't want him to come to you. You finished him on the ropes.
No.
All right, Mickey Duff, the manager, have managed him now to 23-0. You must be thinking title.
I'm thinking middleweight title, junior middleweight title. I think I'd enter him for Miss Universe, any title, as long as somebody wants to give me a title fight. Mr. Hagler, Mr. Hearns, the WBA, they can't avoid him forever. He is the most exciting and the best fighter in the junior middleweight and the middleweight division. Please give him a shot because he deserves it.
Mugobi was now 23-0, and with all wins by knockout. He was slated to face Thomas Hearns, but Hearns chose to relinquish the title and move up to face Hagler in a super fight. Hagler would defeat Hearns and then face the hard-hitting Mugobi. Duff liked Mugabe's chances. He warned how the color of opponents' faces would change after Mugobi hit them, but he knew that Hagler was a different animal, and the Beast would need that something extra. Duff implored Mugobi to spar 15 rounds during training camp, but Mugobi wasn't having it. Quitting after only 9 or 10 rounds of sparring, Mugobi was set on doing his own thing. Nonetheless, the two would wage an unforgettable war, with Mugobi troubling Hagler with his power and his speed. Mugabe's psyche would never recover from the loss. He fell into a spiral of depression, drinking alcohol and gaining weight. Too much weight. He earned over $320,000 for the Hagler fight, and only 6 weeks later was completely broke, buying luxury vehicles and giving money away to hangers-on. 9 months later, after the Hagler loss, Mugobi would return to the ring without a tune-up, facing Dwayne Thomas for the vacated WBC junior middleweight title belt. But he had put on too much weight in the months prior to the fight, and his heart was not in it. Mugobi had insisted on thumbless gloves for the Thomas fight, as he didn't want to suffer another thumbing similar to the Green fight. Ironically, Thomas would catch him with a thumb to the eye, and this go around, Mugobi would quit on his own. The loss kept Mugobi out of the sport for another year, medicating his disappointment with alcohol and fatty foods. But boxing was the only thing he knew, and he mounted a comeback, fighting nondescript opposition to get his confidence back. In July of 1989, Mugobi would get a crack at the WBC junior middleweight title and finally win a championship by taking out Frenchman René Jacot, who twisted his ankle after being floored. But the pattern of blowing up in weight between fights was now par for the course. Mugobi would once again balloon up in weight, going up to the super middleweight division to take some stay busy fights, before he took on a prime and ready Terry Norris. Mugobi quickly realized that it was no longer 1984, and his skills and savagery had greatly eroded. His heart no longer in the sport, Mugobi still needed to pay bills. 18 months later, now nothing more than a name opponent, Emmanuel Stewart trained Gerald McClellan would stop him inside of 1 round. Mugobi would move to Australia and stay out of boxing for 5 years. He would return, but show limited success, finally retiring from the sport just short of his 39th birthday. Outside of the ring, he was far from a beast. Mugobi was by most accounts a quiet man of simple pleasures. He enjoyed reggae music, kung fu movies, and hanging out with friends. He retired to Brisbane, Australia, where he now trains local fighters, and it appears as if the beast has finally found peace.
I will knock him out.